Hey, what's going on? Jerry Hanley of Viking Performance Training coming at you to talk about the big three and why strength is king. So, if you're not typically around strength sports or you're not around like a particularly heavy lifting place, culture, or you're just newer to it, the big three will pretty much unequivocally refer to the three lifts of the squat, the bench, and the deadlift. So, whether you're talking about the sport of powerlifting or not, because that is what they compete there, that is irrelevant. They are so called because there are three of the biggest movement patterns which can help anybody train towards any real big physical goal that they have, whether it's speed, power, explosiveness, strength, size, you name it. Now, strength being king. This is really the key focus of the talk, and the biggest thing I want you to be able to get out of this is that strength is the godfather quality when it comes to performance. Now, cardiovascular endurance is a bit of a mirror existence to strength and has a similar relationship with when it comes to endurance types, but strength training will have the bigger effect on all things than cardiovascular endurance will. So, hence making it the most important thing. So, as we'll see, getting stronger makes every other aspect of your performance better. So, getting stronger most directly is the ability to create more force. So, we can talk about that in a pure absolute strength level, such as a max lift or simply the amount of relative force. And now that relative force is where all these other things come into play. So by relative force, we're talking about the ability to accelerate, even if it's against another high force. Think of maybe two wrestlers pushing against each other. If we're talking about sports, the ability to accelerate even against high amounts of resistance. Now that is called strength speed. So the stronger you are, the better you will be able to do that either faster, easier, or against higher amounts of force. Explosive power is a combination of force production times the velocity and acceleration of that force. So yet again, the stronger you become, the less relative any form of resistance comes, and you can provide more force and or do it faster. And going all the way down that chain to speed, we all know what speed is, the ability to achieve high velocities. This may not have a whole lot of what we consider resistance or force to it, but yet again, the stronger you are, the easier any of those things will become, and you'll be able to provide more force and more speed against it. There is back in the day, I should say, a really famous example of where they used to have a lot more kind of exhibition matches of athletes of different sorts. And one of the strongest, if not the strongest men who ever lived, Paul Anderson, he was an Olympic lifter and all around like strongman in the 1940s and 50s, but actually had an exhibition against a 100 meter, I think it was 100 meter, but sprinting champion in some like the 40s or the 50s. And despite being pretty much four times the sprinter's size, Paul Anderson lost, but nevertheless had a very respectable showing to the much smaller, faster sprinter because he was able to get so much force and power out of every single stride that he took. It surprised a lot of people. But again, the key thing here is that getting stronger makes all your other performance variables better, as long as this is the key, as long as like other things don't suffer because of the time you're spending getting stronger. So even endurance like becoming stronger makes it even more beneficial to endurance. It goes back to the relative strength of things. If you're trying to do something for a long amount of time, whether it's relatively short endurance, short bursts, like 15 seconds, 30 seconds, or a minute, something like that, or if you're talking about longer endurance, getting stronger still makes every single repetition of the activity that you're doing. So if we're talking running, just every single time your foot hits the ground, it is relatively easier to move your body weight the stronger your legs are. And the relatively easier it is to move your body weight, it'll improve your speed, and it just takes less energy out of your body. It makes it a little bit more effortless. So you can either go faster again, or you can you can keep the same amount of effort more times because it's taking less energy out of you. So again, like this is where becoming stronger helps in every form. The issue where a lot of people have and like misconstrue this, and there's actually like a fairly strong faction, very vocal faction of performance training, personal trainers, strength coaches, strength and conditioning researchers, professors, you name it. There's a very like vocal faction that believes you can become too strong for an activity or for a sport, for a performance variable. Now, again, they cannot actually become too strong. That, again, being stronger in all senses will help. Where the issue actually comes about, and they do a very poor job at communicating this, in my opinion, is you can spend too much time trying to get stronger when you've hit a point of diminishing returns. Like all of us who've been around the game for a while, like know that like the stronger you get, and especially once you kind of hit some different strength levels, it becomes significantly harder to continue improving on that strength. So we have to spend even more time, focus on it, be even more specific with our training, and just really keep pushing to hit those higher and higher levels of strength and force production. So what happens a lot of times is when it comes to sports and performance is you reach high levels of strength, and at that point becoming stronger doesn't help you as much. Like it doesn't help you improve your performance as much as it did in the past. And instead focusing on other things more so with your training will be more beneficial to you and will have a greater return on investment when it comes to your training time and your physical resources, such as your energy and your recovery time. I said, so that is where that actually can come into play, is not that getting stronger is no good, but that you can spend too much time after certain levels becoming stronger. Now, here's the other thing. Unless you're talking about pretty much you're getting to like elite level competition or elite level athletes, pretty much nobody that you're coming across has reached that point of diminishing returns. So I said, like, that's not something you're going to come across in high school. You're not going to come across that, definitely not in middle school. You're not going to come across that in college sports unless you're talking very top edge, like super strong developed athletes already. So pretty much like you need to be at a very elite level already to hit that point where you might reach the point of diminishing returns if other types of performance are your goals. Same thing, if you're in general fitness, getting stronger is almost never going to be a bad thing. You can almost always benefit your general health and your general fitness from becoming stronger. Now, again, the key is by making sure that you're like, this is where having a well-rounded program comes into play and really focusing on the goals and priorities of yourself, your athletes, your clients, your team, you name it, is you need to make sure that you're properly working on becoming stronger while also properly focusing on other priorities as they come into play. This is where building up general like assessments, seeing where people are at, where athletes are at, and seeing, like assessments movement wise, but also assessments performance wise, see where you're at after a few different phases or maybe after even every phase, and see what might be lacking. Like, for example, we do 3 types of jump testing. And with every vertical jump, we do a normal counter movement jump, which is your normal vertical. We do a seated jump, which is going to do more rate of force development and pure acceleration. And we do either like a 1-step jump or even a depth drop jump for more developed athletes, something that's going to give either more momentum or more explosive kinetic energy, more impact from the depth jump, either case. And we know that those should be in a certain order. If that ratio between those 3 jumps is out of whack, then that lets us know for that client what we might need to focus on next, where the next phases should go. So those types of assessments help you know what you should be focusing on as you continue becoming stronger, though. And again, the other part about this is you don't need to work on super heavy, like max strength type training all the time in order to get stronger. The less developed the trainee is, then the less they actually need to really worry about max effort training while they get stronger. Sub-maximal improvement, or I should say sub-maximal training, has an enormous window of benefit for a very long time in earlier developed trainees. So take advantage of it. And again, continue making your athletes stronger, continue making yourself stronger, continue making your adults stronger, because again, strength will be king and continue to make everything else better. Now, the big 3 are, again, a very big part of why we want to make sure, a very big part of that well-rounded strength program for most trainees. Granted, you're always going to have exceptions. Everything when it comes to strength and conditioning exercise has the ability to be individualized, but generally we're talking about different types of squat, different types of pressing, and different types of deadlift or hip hinge. So again, keep working on those, keep including those in there. Maybe it's not back squat all the time. Work in front squats, work in specialty bar squats of different types like safety bar, work in split squats, work in pause squats, work in different rate, like work in different speed tempos, you name it. Same thing for bench. You have your normal bench, but you can add in chains, bands, change the specialty bar to like a curved buffalo bar, add in some diagonal grips, whether it's a football bar or a Swiss bar. Get lots of different options there. And again, deadlift, same thing. You have your conventional deadlift, you have a sumo deadlift, heavy RDLs, partial pulls starting from different parts of the floor, deficit deadlifts, trap bar deadlift. The big three is not just relegated to literally 3 exercises. It's the big 3 movement patterns that do the most to help different trainees with their strength. And we want to consistently be working different variations in that will give our trainees the best benefit for their buck. So again, master these things and you'll see any training that you do, either with others or yourself, always have a higher return on training investment than not focusing on the big 3 and by not giving strength its appropriate due. So you can focus on these things and you'll see a lot of benefit come out of it. Catch you later.